welcome to Video Game Time Reviews Live. I'm your host BJ, and today I'm going to be applying my format for reviewing a video game to a movie, which this is the first video review of a movie I've done, so it's going to be kind of interesting. But I decided to choose Dr. No, which I don't actually have the box for it, but it is in the Sean Connery collection as movie 1. So there's that. It is the very first James Bond movie to be released to cinemas, although there was an adaptation of Casino Royale on American television over 8 years before. It's not very good though, and that's why none of us have heard of it. So this was the first one with Sean Connery, and it introduced many elements that are now staples to the series, mainly because it was the first one, and I would like to dive in and talk about it. So James Bond is the hero of the movie, you might figure, and this is the scene where he says his famous line, "The name's Bond, James Bond," for the very first time. But in fact, Sean Connery's character was not the first person to say their name like that. In fact, the very first Bond girl that we meet is Sylvia Trench, and whenever he asks what her name is while they're playing a poker game called Baccarat, she responds, Trench. Sylvia Trench. So it's kind of cool that he actually picked up his habit of saying Bond to James Bond from someone else. Now, we don't see much of Sylvia Trench because she is not the main Bond girl in the movie, and I wouldn't even really classify her as one. So, who's the main villain of this movie, you might ask? And the answer to that is Dr. Julius No. Now, he's a man that's supposed to be Oriental. He doesn't look like it to me. And he has robotic hands, and he's got a facility in Jamaica where he's building nuclear weapons, and James Bond's mission is to stop him, and he is sent on this mission by M himself. Another thing that happens in this movie is at the very beginning, M sends a notice for Bond to come in, so Bond does, and says, Bond, your weapon, which at the time was a Beretta, is too large, and so he gave him a Wilder PPK. Now, in the books, Bond always uses this Beretta, but they changed it for the movie for whatever reason, I guess to make it more modern, but in all reality, it's actually a downgrade from the original weapon that James Bond carried in the novels. So, on to the Bond girl. Now, this is probably the most commonly known thing about every movie, and this one introduced the first one, because it's the first movie. Her name was Honey Rider, and excuse me for this image, but it's the only one with him in it as well. She actually comes up out of the ocean with a knife, and she is looking for shells. Whenever they are attacked by Dr. No's henchmen inside of tanks, they are taken into custody. Overall, her character was okay. I think it's one of those things where she's the first, which makes her kind of cool. Her character does not get developed throughout the course of the story, even into the end, so it's kind of strange. It's a different take on the Bond girls from how they're portrayed in the modern James Bond films. Like, if you look at Vesper Lynd in Casino Royale, or Camille in Quantum of Solace, it's not like that at all. They actually do have their own character arcs, where she's pretty much there to look pretty. So here's another picture of James Bond in his polo, might as well show it. Now, this movie moves really slow. It's one of the slowest moving movies I've ever watched, even though it's only like 90 minutes long, 110 minutes. So it's like, that's with the credits though, the credits for this movie are 1 minute long. I miss those days. Anyways, it moves really slow, and not a lot happens until the last 10 minutes of the movie, which is where Bond escapes custody and goes and beats up a bunch of bad guys and stops Dr. No. All that happens in the last 10 minutes. The first, 100 minutes are pretty much just exposition. Now, it's a lot of fun exposition, and we get to find out more about who James Bond is, but it's kind of boring, and so I can't really recommend this movie to modern cinema audiences, because you're going to get bored. Very bored. So, in summary, if you're looking for a straight-up action movie to watch, this is not for you. It's not an action movie at all. I wouldn't even go as far as to call it a thriller. Now, it is a fun movie in the last 20 or so minutes, but it takes about an hour and a half to build up to anything. And then not a lot happens. But I think the build-up in it is kind of what makes it cool, because it's a different style of action movie from a different era. And so, if you have an appreciation for older movies and the James Bond franchise as a whole, and you just haven't seen this movie, I really do think that you'll enjoy it because it has a lot of classic James Bond moments to offer you. But if you're just looking for an action movie, like I said, it's not going to be for you. Thank you for watching, and please keep your eye out for more 007 movie reviews because there's 7 more I can make. And after I get done with these, I might move on to another film series like Star Trek or Star Wars and really give you a scoop on those. So anyways, thank you for watching, and please subscribe to save yourself from the impending zombie apocalypse. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Always.